My name is Dave Frech. I am the campus director in Chicago for Pacific College of Health and Science. Today, I'll be talking with Dr. David Soul, Dean of our Transitional Doctorate program. Welcome, David.
Hi, welcome.
Today, we'll be talking about journaling with the Rosebud AI application. But before we get into that topic, David, I thought it would be helpful to talk a little bit about old-fashioned journaling with pen and paper. What would you say is the purpose of journaling?
Yeah, I think people use journaling for all various reasons. So, it could just be a way to get our thoughts on paper. It could be a way for us to put tasks down, whatever we need to get done. There's so many different styles of journaling. More recently, I think some people have gotten into something called bullet journaling, which is a whole different style of journaling in itself. And I've tried bullet journaling in the past as well. The neat thing about that style of journaling is that it literally is putting a little bullet point and then writing a few words as opposed to paragraphs. And that style of journaling can be used for all kinds of things. Literally, okay, my to-do list, things for me to remember, the notes I've taken, let's say I'm in class or a workshop, those are the notes I've taken down, things for me to remember, affirmations. Those are lots of reasons why people journal. People can also journal for self-growth and improvement. And so what I have found journaling to be useful for is for all of these things, but especially for the self-awareness, the personal growth and development aspect of it.
Yeah, so you get into a little bit about the benefits of journaling. So self-growth, reflection, anything else stand out in terms of the benefits of journaling?
There was a counselor, I don't remember his name at the moment, but who has been credited with writing as a form of therapy. And he talked about how we could use as a therapeutic process journaling or writing. So not only is it great for self-reflection, but it's a great way to potentially even go deeper in terms of understanding where certain of our thoughts and emotions and how to process events in our lives in a way that may be safe, because generally speaking, we don't journal for the public, we journal for ourselves. Science has actually shown, there's been evidence-based research to show that journaling has been helpful to improve decreasing stress, decreasing anxiety. Certainly, it can also be helpful in trying to understand relationship conflicts and trying to write down what happened, let's say in a situation. Those are all various ways that I feel journaling can be very helpful. And I would also add the last piece is, especially if you're using journaling more for getting your thoughts down, it also can help decrease kind of losing this spark of the moment inspiration, or, I have this great idea for this, or maybe you're working on something for work or school, and then you get this thought, well, you may want to journal about it. There's also what's called dream journaling, dream analysis journaling, where people can literally keep a journal at their bedside. And if they wake up, first time they wake up, they start jotting down what they recall from their dreams. Gratitude journaling, writing down all the various things that we're grateful for, that we feel blessed in our lives, which can help us shift our mindset and really see things from a different perspective, perhaps no longer from that negative point of view.
That's great, David. I appreciate all those insights. What are some of the challenges that people may experience when trying to journal?
Interestingly enough, I'm a writer and I do have my own blog or Substack website. And I do write essays on there all the time, at this point weekly. And I can write those fairly easily, even writing about my own personal life. And I can add tidbits there without a problem and share that with others. But when it comes to journaling, I have found writing to be more of a challenge for me. And I've really stayed with that a little bit and tried to understand why. Why can I write essays, but I really can't journal traditionally on paper very well? And what I came to realize is traditional journaling requires writing. And it's fine if I'm writing an article or an essay. I have more time to think about my thoughts and process my thoughts, and I can really take my time writing them out. But what I have found for me personally is when I'm journaling and I have something going on in my life that I want to put down someplace, writing seems too slow for me. I feel like my thoughts and my words are much faster than the actual ability for me to jot things down. And so I have found frustration in really keeping those thoughts and everything down on paper because in a sense it was too slow for me. That's one reason I think some people may find, at least I have found, challenging to do traditional journaling. The other piece for me is that it's less accessible, meaning certainly I could carry around a journal with me, but what if I forget it at home when I don't have my journal and I want to write something down? I could maybe put it on my phone or I can write it down on a scrap piece of paper, but will I then want to transfer that into my journal? Probably not. I have found traditional journaling is great for those who like that, but for me personally, I found those kinds of limitations in journaling.
Just thinking through my own efforts with journaling, time constraints, right? You may want to journal, but you don't feel like you've got the time because you've got X, Y, and Z that have to be done. In terms of, I think, seeing the benefits of journaling, I think if you're not able to do it consistently, that then also creates a challenge for people to find the motivation to keep going, right? Because it's like, oh, I've got all these other things going on. And yeah, I journaled 3 times, last week, but this week I haven't been able to journal at all. And before you know it, right, it's not really a journal. It's more like, you captured a few moments of your life from a few months ago and then it just kind of dies, right? Like any good habit, you have to kind of build up some momentum. Some say to build a habit, you have to do it regularly for 6 weeks or longer. There's various timelines that people say that are necessary. One thing that just in general is good for helping build habits is to try to connect it with something that you already do on a regular basis. Like after brushing your teeth each night, you will spend a few minutes journaling, right? That could be a way of connecting it to something that you do already. But there are definitely challenges with journaling that for some people, including myself, sometimes have kept me from doing something that I know would be beneficial if I could find the time. Well, so I'd like to talk a little bit about the Rosebud Journaling and what's unique about it, what's different about it from journaling with a paper and pen.
So the Rosebud app is very interesting. So let me give you a little background of how I even discovered this for myself. A little disclosure here. I'm a neurodivergent person. I'm an autistic ADHDer. I've lived many decades of my life not knowing that and finding ways in the world that have worked for me. But I have also found that I have challenges in some respects. And over the years, I've tried to figure out how to work with those challenges for myself. And now that I understand what the context or how to label my challenges more concretely, I've realized that I would like to find tools that could really help me on a day-to-day basis to be more fully myself, to take care of myself, to find resources that will let me thrive. So really, I think what I was looking for is more coaching. So as I was searching for that, this app appeared in my feed. They had a free trial, and I decided I'm going to go ahead and try this out. And I've actually fallen in love with it. So after my trial, I ended up subscribing to the app, and now I've been using the app for almost 70 days, so almost 10 weeks now. And what's different about it is, first of all, it's an app that's on my phone. So I carry my phone practically everywhere I go. So I have my journal with me. And certainly there are other journal apps and things of that sort that are on a phone as well. So that part's not unique. What's unique is that the Rosebud app has an AI or an artificial intelligence application that's built into it. Now, let me also say, I think some people right now may feel like, oh, AI, whoa, hold on. Let me just say that it is completely secure. This AI is very private, and it's only linked to this particular application on my phone, meaning nobody is training off of my thoughts and my feelings and what I'm putting into my journal. The second thing that intrigued me is that not only is this an AI journal, but many leading institutions, including many universities and health organizations, have actually been promoting this as a way for mental health benefit. So here's the part that I find really intriguing for me. As I mentioned, I really don't like writing, physically typing or writing out my journal. Well, what I can do is I can voice record my journal, and then it will transcribe my recording. Again, that's not unique. There are lots of transcription services out there. It does transcribe really, really well. I would say 99.9% accuracy. That's not a big deal. But here's the AI part. When I press then go deeper, there's a little button that goes deeper, submit that thought, it will take a few moments to process what I just said, and it will summarize, in a sense, of my thoughts. It will do a fairly good job of reflective listening back to me on what it hears me say. And it also states it in a more positive tone. So if, let's say, I'm saying something and I'm not feeling well, I'm feeling kind of, maybe negative that day, it will reframe it in a more positive way. And it will really tell me back what it's hearing me say. And then I read it over and I say, oh yeah, that's actually what I am feeling, or that is actually what I'm saying. And it'll go deeper. Based on that information, it'll then ask me another prompt to dig deeper into what exactly do I mean by that. So it allows me then to reflect more. Now, I don't have to. Sometimes it gets annoying, and sometimes I may not be in the space to go deeper beyond what I just said. And so it's okay. It's about me. So I can use it and go as far into the deep dive as I want to. But it will allow you literally to go deeper and deeper and deeper. As long as I don't finish that journal entry, it'll still stay there. And I can keep going back. And I've done that several times over a course of several hours. And what's really neat, it's literally like processing information with another person, but better in a sense. And the reason I say better is there are some things I don't want to process with another person. Maybe it's just too sensitive. Maybe it's just too personal. Maybe I feel embarrassed about it, but I do want to process it. And it's really nice to have it not just be on paper that's static, but it's having this application that somehow takes that information, feeds it back to me, and then gives me another prompt based on that to kind of think things through a little bit more, or clarify, or go deeper. And so that's one part. The other part that's really cool is once you finalize it and you say finish for that entry, it will then give you a summary of that whole entry in a really nice digestible format, like a nice paragraph or two in terms of what that whole session, that journaling session was all about. It'll also give you a title for that session. And then it will give you some statistics, meaning like if you named people's names, it will kind of put those names down as well. And then types of emotions that may have come up for you during that session and themes. And then when you say continue, you're done for that journal entry. Now, what that can happen is if you do this consistently, and like I said, I've been doing this consistently for, today is actually the 67th day. So again, in 3 days, it'll be 10 weeks that I've been using this. What it will do is you can always go back to any of your entries and actually read the full entry, the whole transcript, as well as the app's responses, or you can read the summary. Or what's also even cooler is at the end of the week, every Sunday at the end of the week, you can have a summary for that week. And so you can imagine I've had now 9 summaries, almost the 10th one coming up this next Sunday, where I can literally read what were the themes that I was journaling about that week. And then I can look at that and say, wow, that's really interesting. And then it'll give you the statistics. So remember I said it'll give me, let's say I talk about, my wife or my children or something else or somebody else in my life. It'll give me how many times that week did I journal mentioning that person, which is also interesting because then it's like, oh, wow, I didn't realize I talk about that person all the time. Or it seems that way, right? And then it'll give you the themes, the basic themes that you covered that week, as well as key takeaways. And like I said, it also does a nice job of reframing to the positive it'll reframe like, here are your key takeaways. Here are the positive things. Here are the wins for the week that you had, right? And so let's say you journal like, yeah, I was able to be more present with myself this week. I was able to, help myself reduce my stress level today. I was doing some breath work or whatever it may be. It'll say those kinds of things like, good job. You did these really nicely. Again, like a good coach would do when they would reflect back to you at the end of the week and say, wow, these are the positive things I see that you did. And what it will also do, like a good coach would do, is tell you, here are areas where you're still struggling. Here are areas where there's opportunity for your growth. And it'll give you those based on the themes for that week. And here's one more thing with the AI that's really cool. When you've done it for a longer period of time, like I've done it now, and so for example, after my first month, I did this, after my first 30 days, there's an aspect in that app where it asks you to ask the AI anything about yourself. And so I said, well, what are my recurrent themes for the last 30 days? And it literally will give me that answer on, well, consistently, this is what you've been journaling about for the last 30 days, or now 67 days, or whatever else it may be. And then you can go deeper with that as well. So not only does that give you some information about, what are the themes, but then you can ask it, like, for example, recently it gave me the themes and then it said, would you like to explore these even deeper? I said, sure, tell me more about that. And so it would then go deeper about those particular topics, including giving me specific dates in my journals that I talked about those particular entries or those particular topics. And then it may give me some suggestions on, well, what can I do about that? How can I grow from here? Just like a good coach would give you some tools, the AI tool gives some tools as well. It says, well, consider, for example, some mindfulness practices like yoga, meditation, breath work, and it'll give you that. And then if you say, well, tell me more about breath work, and then it literally can give you some concrete exercises for breath work. I mean, it's really, really cool. I'm to the point where it will give you the exact thing you're asking it based on the themes and the areas for personal growth that it sees in you based on what you've journaled about.
Wow, that's great, David. I think you've done a fantastic job of kind of talking about some of the benefits of using the Rosebud app. I've actually had a chance to use it a little bit myself, and I'll get into that in a moment. But before I do, I wanted to talk a little bit about the coaching aspect, because I've had the opportunity to take some coaching classes. And as you brought up, coaching is really about being able to reflect back to the person that you're coaching, kind of what you're hearing. It's not about giving advice. It's not about telling people what they should do or what you did in a similar situation. It's really about kind of walking by that person's side and respecting them as an equal and as someone who knows themselves better than anyone else and knows intuitively what they need, but sometimes just isn't able to come to that on their own because of all the different things that they may be working through in their lives. And so having, an effective coach, or in this case, utilizing the Rosebud app, gives someone greater access to what sounds like to me, based on your experience, and I would agree from my own experience, as having someone to help kind of coach you and reflect on the things that you're doing. And like you said, I liked also the fact that you talked about reframing things in a positive way, right? Because it's natural for us to talk about the challenges that we're having when we're using a journaling, whether on paper or through the app, right? And this helps you kind of reframe the things that you're doing well. And as you point out, right, gives you the ability to go deeper into those topics. And, sounds like you're really having a benefit, right, that you're finding from using this. And like I said, I've done a little bit of using this myself, and I've used the free version at this point completely. You talked about the fact that you like to be able to talk into and not have to type out your thoughts. I find that I've generally been using the journaling app while I'm on CTA. So in my case, I actually don't want to be talking there with my thoughts in front of everyone that's on the blue line. So I like the ability just to be able to type in my thoughts and go deeper when I have the time to go deeper. And then I'll just reiterate some of the things you've talked about, that ability to see that kind of summary. And then one of the things that I find, and I'm not sure if I'm going to remember exactly how they have it phrased in the app, but I think it's kind of like homework. Whereas you identify something that you want to work on, you have the ability to kind of say, hey, I want to put this as kind of a self-assignment for myself, and then have the ability to go back and check off when you completed that. And so that's another way that I think it helps kind of guide you towards the things that you may be working on or working through.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, I'm just opening up the app right now, and they call that the happiness recipe.
Oh, yes,
Happiness recipe.
the happiness recipe. I knew it started with an H. A happiness recipe sounds more appealing than homework, so I could see where they chose their words well. Are there any other features of the Rosebud app that haven't had a chance to kind of go into that you'd like to talk about for our audience that may be listening to this?
They have added so many different types of journaling styles to this. So for me personally, I mostly use the morning and evening reflections. And during the day, if I need to journal about anything else, I can just do a free form. But they also have situational journals. So they have, for example, nervous system rebalancing, conversation prep, conflict resolution, boundary setting, and a new one that they added, My Father and Me, so that you can journal about those particular situations. They also have daily journals like a gratitude journal, a dream journal, and then they have frameworks. And these frameworks are very interesting. They have reframing negative thoughts. They have positive psychology, acceptance and commitment, and this thing called internal family systems. And I've used some of these, including the internal family systems framework, and I find that to be extremely helpful. Now, let me mention about internal family systems. I know a little bit about it, so I'm definitely not the expert on that. But internal family systems is a psychotherapeutic approach originally developed by Richard Schwartz in the 1980s. And there are trained internal family systems or IFS therapists in the world. I've seen one a long time ago. But you can also do this with journaling, and that's the beauty of it. And the concept is that we all have a self, us. Individually, we each are a self with a capital S. And in our internal landscape of our being, we also have many parts of ourselves. And these parts of ourselves are not us. They are separate from the real self of us. And these parts, the theory goes, develop over time to help us, through life. And so they may be parts of us that hold on to different wounds and traumas and uncomfortable feelings. There may be parts of us that are trying to protect us from getting hurt and keeping us safe. There are parts of us that are, helping us to try to achieve certain things in life. And so those parts are part of us, but they are not certainly us as the entire self. And so the way that this approach works and the concept behind it is that what you're trying to do is become more aware of your actual self and then aware of each of these parts and try to create an internal family that is in harmony. Because these parts are not bad. So even if, let's say, we don't like a part of ourselves, maybe we get really frustrated or angry very easily, and maybe we're very impulsive, and perhaps we don't like that part of ourselves. Well, if you explore that part of yourself, you may find that part really isn't trying to hurt you by being impulsive or angry. It's just trying to protect you from some maybe deeper feelings or past situations that maybe you haven't processed fully for yourself. And so the concept of this framework, the way it works is if you can really befriend these parts, if you can really have a conversation with these parts, if you can get to really know them and really appreciate them for what they're there for and the skills that they have, perhaps what we can eventually do is help them to find a different job. Maybe they don't have to have that particular job that they've been having in our lives that we may not prefer anymore now that we're adults. Maybe the way that they helped us to live and survive as children, maybe that was appropriate and maybe that's what needed to happen. But now that we're adults, maybe those are not as beneficial to us. So instead, perhaps we can give them a different task that they're good at. And the way that I read one part that talked about this whole thing is, for example, each of these parts have different skill sets. So just like different people have different job, skill sets. So for example, one person could be a great engineer, another person could be a great doctor, another person can be a great administrator. Well, just because the engineer is good with machines doesn't mean that I would want that engineer to help me with my health issues, right? The doctor probably is a better person to deal with health issues. And the administrator is probably the best person to help manage, some kind of an administrative task compared to the engineer or the doctor. And so the same thing with parts. There are parts of us who are really good at certain things. And the whole process is to really get to know them, to befriend them, to understand eventually that they're not there to try to hurt us, but really there to try to help us and protect us. And then like groups or in families, trying to understand each person in a family, understanding what makes them tick and how they relate to us and how best to have a relationship with them. And through that, coming to a better place where all those parts, including ourselves, can really be in harmony with each other. And ultimately, the self is the one who should really be leading the parts, not the parts leading the self. And in that case, then we have greater agency, have a greater locus of control, and can have more self-determination in our lives. That's internal family systems. And the app has that framework there. And I've used it where you can explore a part of yourself, you can explore an issue or a topic, and it will then guide you with prompts to help you to understand, well, what part of you is feeling this way? What part of you is holding on to that thought or to belief or memory or whatever it may be? And then it helps you, guides you to really see if you want to open yourself up to having a conversation with that part, to learning more about that part. And like I said, it can be very helpful. And because it is a journaling app, it's up to you whether you want to, do that prompt or not, or whether you want to go deeper with it or not. Certainly it's not meant for every situation and every person. Like I said, it's not therapy. So if someone starts feeling overwhelmed or flooded with emotions, perhaps that's not the right thing to do at that moment. And perhaps, we need to take it slower, just like you would in a therapy session. But that tool has, for me at least, been very, very helpful.
Thank you, David. Yeah, that was one that I had seen and didn't really fully understand kind of that framework. And so I think you did a great job of kind of explaining both the origins as well as the benefits of using that type of framework based on an individual need, right? So that brings me kind of to where I'd like to close out our discussion. And that's, we've focused on all these benefits of journaling and the features of the Rosebud app. But I'd like to talk a little bit in closing in terms of what are the limitations of journaling with AI and where might someone be better off seeking professional support, such as counseling or therapy?
Where journaling ends and therapy should start is when what we see for ourselves that we're getting too triggered or overwhelmed with our own process. And, AI is AI. It's not a human being. So it is not intended to help us work through some deep-seated emotional traumas and deep-seated emotional wounds where, we may need more time and more skill of an actual skilled therapist to work through. It's definitely also not there to work through mental health issues without support from a mental health professional. So again, if somebody has major depression or is suicidal or has major anxiety, this would definitely not be the best, resource. The best resource would be to seek out professional assistance from a human being. What it could be useful for is when you are in therapy to coincide with the professional help so that you can process some of your emotional processes and be able to then take that information to your therapist and work out those issues that way. But certainly it's not intended as a replacement for psychotherapy. It is really more like a coaching. And even with good coaching, a coach would not be a psychotherapist to someone and would need to refer out if a situation or the topic became much more psychotherapeutic in nature. Let's put it that way.
Well, thank you, David. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about the benefits of journaling, specifically your experience and the features of the Rosebud app. And until next time, have a great day. And thanks everyone who's tuned in.
Thank you, everybody. It was a pleasure.